Given that it is widely reported that God truly sends all prophets and messengers to spread Tawhid and instruct people to only worship Him alone, it is true to say that this is their only task. Actually, this is a Tawhid religion, Din al-Wahdaniyah, which forbids all kinds of polytheistic acts. It is emphasized in the Quran, "We indeed sent a messenger unto every community. Worship God and shun false deities." God sends Prophet Muhammad as seal of the prophets with a purpose to rectify the faith after the errors the people had made. The ubiquity of polytheistic acts that threatened faith was the Prophet Muhammad's first obstacle at time. Islam, which the Prophet Muhammad taught, condemns all polytheism and forms of mediation that pollute the bond between a servant and God. Tawhid means the acknowledgement of God as the creator of the whole cosmos. Meanwhile, the method of asserting oneness of God itself is to carry out worship that is only for Him. The Muslim jurists commonly give a literal meaning that Tawhid is verbally, there is no God who is worshipped save God. In terms of this understanding, the Muslim jurists confirm to us the status of human servanthood before the Creator. Tawhid that underlies Islamic teachings has also led Muslim theologians to think that God must be wholly distinct from other created beings. They believe that God's status as the creator of the whole cosmos is what most distinguishes God from created beings. Succinctly, it seems that the concept of Tawhid is still more of an introduction and has not yet touched the very core of the Tawhid. What is clear from the earlier exposition is that there is still a clear and firm point of demarcation between servant and God, not how the servant can directly taste Tawhid or the oneness of God, the only one. Therefore, we need to look at the very understanding of the Sufis who go further and dive into the basics of knowledge about Tawhid. In Islam, the essence of Sufism is drawing closer to God. Paradoxically, God has been very close to humans. How close God is to humans has been described in the Quran. "We did indeed create man, and we know that what his soul whispers to him, and we are nearer to him than his jugular vein." The Quranic verse describes God as not far from human beings, but He is very close to them. Therefore, in the Sufi tradition, there is an aphorism often considered as a hadith, that is, whoever knows himself knows his Lord. To seek God, the Sufi does not need to go far, but he only needs to enter into himself, and God he seeks will be found within the self. It is in that context that the following verse is understood by the Sufis. "You did not slay them, but God slew them. And thou slew not when thou slew, but God through." The Sufis believe that there is a union between man and God in this respect. In addition to human being, God is also near to all other creatures. In contrast to the understanding of other Islamic disciplines, Sufism further views the notion of Tawhid as not just verbal statements and a dry acknowledgement, but reaches the profoundest meaning of Tawhid. For Sufi to be a true Muslim, it is not enough to only say there is no God but Allah. In the words of Abu Sa'id bin Abil Khair, a Sufi from Khurasan, quotes, "Only by such an acknowledgement, that is verbal Tawhid, most people cannot be said to believe the very oneness of God. They still deserve to be called polytheists. Such acknowledgement is only the act of tongue, while their heart is still shrouded in shirk." Abu Sa'id's words highlight that one who can't free himself from various physical desires and still has desires for physical objects and pleasures has not believed in oneness of God. It means that one still has dependence on something other than God, and due to this kind of dependence, Abu Sa'id considers that the person still does not fully believe in the oneness of God. The inner states like these are still considered as shirk. Therefore, for the Sufis, obliterating physical desires, eliminating worldly desires, and affirming that only God's will exists are steps that must be taken to free oneself from shirk. If those are carried out, one can arrive at the door of unity. And when the unity is achieved, the very Tawhid is realized. So Tawhid for the Sufis is the perfect union of human existence and the existence of God. This unity is the main goal of the Sufi path. It is through this teaching, namely the self-purification, that the Sufis try to bridge the self with the owner of the self. The method of the self-purification itself, according to Abu Sa'id, is all creatures are actually worthless and God is everything. Therefore, act like that. Then obey and practice it so that you remain in that state. Be obedient, meaning that if you have said one, then you no longer say two. The created and the creator are two. The true belief is to declare God to be the only one and hold that statement. Holding it here means that if you have declared God is the only one, then you no longer talk about creatures or think about them in your heart. Even the creatures have to be considered not to exist. Whatever is seen and said should be seen from the side of something that exists. That is God, the One. Love the One, for He will never perish, whereas we surely perish. Al-Qalabadi, the 11th century Sufi, elucidates the elements of Tawhid as follows. First, separate the most eternal from the new. Second, purify the eternal essence from the new. Third, do not equate the attributes of God with those of other than Him. Fourth, eliminate the view of cause and effect from other than God. Fifth, glorify God from what creatures do and do not give colors to God's essence. Sixth, purify God from all thoughts and fantasy. Seventh, do not compare God with other than Him. As-Sarraj explained that the oneness of God means confirming His oneness, wahdaniyah, with the perfection of His unity, ahadiyah. In As-Sarraj's words, if someone has perfect Tawhid, then surely all feelings for something other than God, such as the hope of heaven and fear of the hellfire, will never arise, like the rising sun that takes away all the stars in the sky. It is stated that the Sufi who first discussed Tawhid was Siri as-Sakoti, the uncle and teacher of Junayd al-Baghdadi. However, in a more accurate note, it is stated that Junayd was the first to discuss Tawhid in a more comprehensive way. Junayd himself was even honored as the master of the Sufis. The Sufis actually enhanced the discussion of Tawhid, which is rational and discursive, as the theologians and fiqh experts unto intuitive testing. The discussion of Tawhid of the Muslim jurists and theologians, which is theoretical and rational examination, is then directed to spiritual testing. For the Sufis, one of the inner aspects of all kinds of worship of God is knowing God, ma'rifatullah, and the origin of ma'rifah is Tawhid. Well, to apprehend the oneness of God means to deny all qualities that relativize God. Junayd was the first to classify Tawhid into four parts. First, Tawhid of the ordinary. This is an acknowledgement of the oneness of God by eliminating all partners, all opposites, all that equal and all that resemble. This kind of Tawhid only has the reality in its implementation as long as the affirmation of the oneness of God is still realized in the mind. Second, Tawhid of the intellectuals. This is the acknowledgement of the oneness of God by negating all partners, all opposites, all that equal and all that resemble, along with obeying all the commands and avoiding all prohibitions. Third, Tawhid of the elect. It is the acknowledgement of His oneness along with the loss of attention to everything and being obedient to commands both outwardly and inwardly by eliminating the conflicts of likes and dislikes coming from other than God. Fourth, Tawhid of the elect of the elect. It is a Tawhid of a lover who has achieved togetherness or union with the beloved. So at this level of Tawhid, a servant does not need proof or argumentation, because indeed this union cannot be checked by reason. This highest kind of Tawhid cannot be achieved except by making oneself annihilated from himself and from everything other than al-haq. Besides, Junayd gives sequential systematics. According to him, Tawhid is the result of God's tawfiq. Through tawfiq, one can affirm Tawhid. From Tawhid, then justification appears. From justification, verification appears. From verification, gnosis appears. From gnosis, divine acceptance appears. From divine acceptance, assent appears. From assent, connection appears. From connection, proof appears. From proof, bewilderment appears. From bewilderment, proof disappears, and so does the attributes. Afterwards, the essence of being, hakikatul wujud, appear, and then the essence of witnessing, hakikatul shuhud, also appears along with indications of the annihilation of self-existence. With the disappearance of self-existence, there is emptiness of existence and purity of existence. Then the existence of the whole cosmos comes. So this is where what is called existence and non-existence, and non-existence and existence appear. In other words, that which exists is nothingness and nothingness is existence. Then existence exists after non-existence exists. What exists after its non-existence is existence after existing and non-existent. Clearly for Junayd, although muwahhid existentially exists, mawjud, in essence he does not exist, mafkud. From the systematic explanation, actually Junayd wanted to provide an explanation or elaboration of the stages of spiritual ascension while explaining his viewpoint of gnosis. Here it can be seen that the understanding of Tawhid lived through the denial of qualities to lead to connection is tawfiq from God. It is clear for Junayd, Tawhid is not rational discourse but rather is the result of self-training, that is, not just spiritual training to reach connection but also achieve unity. It is important to note that Junayd was well known as a sober Sufi, different from al-Hallaj. For Junayd, it is the spiritual tasting or dhawq that is able to feel the essence of Tawhid. The pinnacle of Tawhid for al-Junayd is the longing or ishq to achieve unity with the One. If observed carefully, it will be clear that the meaning of Tawhid for Sufi is not just a verbal statement but has been transformed in such a way into the spiritual experience of inner states of union between a servant and God. In short, in the Sufi scrutiny, Tawhid is not just a verbal statement, but a direct tasting of the oneness of God within the inward chambers of human being and the outward cosmos, which can be obtained through spiritual striving or mujahada. Thank you so much for watching. You can help me out monetarily, be it PayPal or Patreon. I'll see you next time.